So the Ultra Beat drums that have been in here, I just showed you that for getting a stereo file. Let's look at the more plausible option, if you will, which is to usually when you go to a mix, you want as much individual control of your elements as possible. Let's go back to my analogy of cooking. If you got a recipe for cooking and you get prepackaged ingredients that are already measured and in a bag. Let's say, for instance, in our cake example, let's say the eggs, the flour, and the salt already came mixed in a package and is prepackaged, right? Now, if you're a novice to mixing, that may be good. You're like, hey, that's good. I'm just going to throw that in there. All I got to do is add my vanilla abstract and some water, put it in the oven. I'm good to go. But a mix engineer or a chef, if you will want access to those individual elements so he can measure how much he wants or tweak it the way he wants. So he doesn't want his eggs, flour, and vanilla abstract in one bag just already ready to go in his recipe. He wants those things separate. So think of that as these drums. Once I bounce these drums to a stereo file, they're married together. Like the kick, the snare, and the hi-hat and the open hi-hat are all married into this one audio file, which it's pre-mixed. It's pre-done. I don't have ultimate control over that. I can't turn down just the kick down or turn the snare up or just EQ the snare to the sweet spot. It has to already have been done into this pre-packaged stereo file. So usually what you want is that individual control. So let's look at how to get that individual control out of this. I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of the stereo drum file. All right. And I'm going to take this same drum region, and in the drum region, it actually has, I'm going to open it up down here in the piano roll editor. It has a kick. Where is the kick? That's the snare. It's got a snare, hi-hat. This is another hi-hat, sounds a little open, and the kick. So it's really 4 different elements. I want 4 different audio stems to actually use that into my project. Now, I should slow down a little bit and say that this option isn't available for every software instrument that you have. But Logic has several software instruments that give you the option of multi-outputs. I'm actually using something called UltraBeat. UltraBeat's been around in Logic for ages. It's a great synthesizing drum machine that uses either samples or synthesis to create drum sounds. I actually am using samples in this case because I used what's called the drag and drop samples version, which basically gives you a clear, empty UltraBeat, and then you can add samples on your own. I could do a whole class just on UltraBeat. It's kind of that in depth, but the reason I used UltraBeat is because it has that multi-output option that I can show you to separate the sounds and use them as on their own channel strips, on auxiliary channel strips or audio tracks, or you can pipe them out as separate audio stems for mixing. So let me show you how to do that. First thing you need to do is in your inspector or on your channel strip for your software instrument where it says UltraBeat. When I first instantiated it, I created it as a stereo output UltraBeat. I want to change that now to a multi-output. Now, this will not affect the instruments and sounds that I have playing from UltraBeat or the performance that I already had there. It will just kind of go away. Oops, I hit the wrong one. Multi-output, it'll black out and then it'll come back, and now it's a multi-output. It looks exactly the same. There's nothing different from how it looks. The only way you can tell is kind of multi-output is by actually starting to separate some things out. So let me turn on a quick cycle. I just want to play this first couple bars of this drum while I show you how to tell where your sounds are coming from in UltraBeat. So remember, it's only 4 sounds playing. If you look really closely at the UltraBeat interface, you'll notice it's kind of like a piano roll editor. You see these keys that go up the side? They're like keys on your keyboard. This is actually C1. And then it just goes up the keyboard from there, right? So when I play my region, these keys will light up to let you know which sound is being triggered. So you see my kick is happening way up here at the top, right? And then my snare is this snare right here, the fuzzy snare. Hi-hat is this H2, hi-hat 2, and the open one is this. So I know which sounds are happening. Now, without getting into an entire class on Ultrabeat, Ultrabeat actually has 25 different synthesizers in here to create sounds. Like each one of these sounds has its own separate set of parameters. When you click on the sound, you'll notice the things over here are actually changing. Watch. Every one you click has a separate set of settings. So this is not one global parameter for all of the sounds that you see here. Each sound has its own set of parameters. And that gives us a lot of options. So what I'm going to do is just quickly show you how to separate the sounds out of here. I'm going to select, I have to select the sound that I want to separate. So I want to have access to the kick on its own channel strip so that I can create an audio file for it. So what this says is, gives you the name of the sound. This is the kick that I'm using. This teal green bar is actually a volume slider also for, which I can't make slide now. There you go. For the kick drum if you wanted to adjust it, but I'm going to leave it at 0 dB. You'll see that there's a mute and a solo button here and a panning button. So you can do some mixing of the individual elements right inside Ultrabeat in this case. But what I want to go to, what I'm interested in is the output. The minute I change this to a multi-output instantiation of Ultrabeat, it gave me options to separate the outputs from it just being a stereo channel. Like right now when it plays, everything comes right out of the stereo output. You're hearing everything there. But now, oops, too big, not too big. Now, right here where it says output, sub out 1 or subgroup 1 is the main output. And then you'll see here, I could assign that to subgroup 2, which is outputs 3 and 4. Subgroup 3, 5, and 6, right? And if you go down, you'll see you get mono channels. Most drums are mono, so I'm going to use mono channels. But you could just go, hey, I'm going to put the kick on 3 and 4, put something else on 5 and 6, 7 and 8, so forth and so on. I'm going to assign the kick to subgroup 9, which is output 17. So I got to remember that. So that's going to sub 9, which is output 17. And where was the snare? It's this snare. I'm going to go here on the snare, and I'm going to put that on subgroup 18. I'm going to put this hi-hat on 19, and I'm going to put this open hi-hat right above it on 20. So I have the kick coming out of subgroup 9, the snare coming out of subgroup 10, the hi-hat at 11, and did I get the right other hi-hat? Oh, I got the wrong hi-hat here. Okay, so let me change some things. I want to put this on subgroup 11, and okay, I got it now. All right, so what I've done is I've separated all of the different drum elements and gave them their own output. But you may say, hey, when you play it, everything's still coming out of the stereo output down here, right? So we need to go to our mixer to make some changes really fast. I'm going to hit X to open up my mixer at the bottom of the screen. And in my mixer, because I made this a multi-output instantiation of Ultrabeat, at the bottom of my channel strip, under the peak meter here, I have this plus button. And what this plus button will do will allow me to assign auxiliary channel strips to this Ultrabeat channel strip. So those sub outs, I'm going to assign those to those auxiliary channel strips. When I click this plus button, I'm going to click it. Well, I have four sounds. I'm going to do it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll see by default, it just goes in order. So remember the first sub out was the main. That's the stereo channel. And then the next one was 3 and 4, then 5 and 6, then 7 and 8, then 9 and 10. What I need to do is change those to the individual outputs that I have. So I'm going to go here and go down. Once you click on the input, you can go down to instrument. And because it's looking at this instrument here, so that's what it means by instrument. and I'm going to go to Ultra Beat. UB stands for Ultra Beat 17. That should be my kick. Let me play it. Oops, unsolo. Woo, really loud. So that's my kick. That's what I want there. All right. And then I'm going to go here, and this is going to be 18. This one is going to be 19. And this one is going to be 20. All right. So these 3 channels or 4 channels should be my drum kit all separated. Just turn it down. So here's my kick, my snare, and my 2 hi-hat channel strips. So now I have more control, right? Everything is separated as far as my drums are concerned. I could leave this and mix it just like this because, again, these channel strips have access to all of my audio effects or inserts and send. So I have the capabilities of mixing it while it's still MIDI going to these separate channels. I can name them and just start mixing. But the whole conversation here is turning it into audio. To turn it into those separate pieces of audio, I want a kick, a snare, a hi-hat, 2 hi-hats. I had to separate it out like that. So once that's done, I can close out my mixer. Did I have something soloed there? I do. Unsolo it. And with the track selected, I'm going to go here to the file menu, go down to export, and here you will see track as audio file. 1 track as audio file, the track that's selected. There's another option here we'll talk about later, all tracks as audio files. But this one right here is the track that I have selected is the Ultra Beat drums. I want to export it as an audio file. Shortcut is Command E. I'm going to click that. When I click that, I get a dialog box that comes up. Blow that up just a little bit, right? And it's basically saying, where do you want to save it? I'm going to save it to my desktop. So I hit Command D to change my location to the desktop. And then here at the bottom, I want to create a new folder on my desktop. And in that folder, I'm going to call it Ultra UB Stems. So I know that my Ultra Beat stems are in there. I'm not going to change anything down here except for when I get to this place about multi-output software instruments. So the file format that I wanted to create, WAV, that's fine. BitDef 16. But when you have a multi-output instrument, remember I changed Ultra Beat to a multi-output instrument. If I have that, then I have to tell Logic how to go about exporting those individual outputs. If you leave it at its default where it says 1 file per track, you may say, well, that works because remember, let me back out of this real fast. Remember here in the mixer, we've got these different channels, but that's exactly what they are. They're channel strips. They're not tracks. Tracks are here. So there are no tracks for those in my session. So it's not 1 file per track. It's 1 file per channel strip is what you want to create. So what was that shortcut? Command E. So it'll go back here, make sure it's going into my desktop, into the folder that I created, which was called UB Stems. And then here, I want to change this to 1 file per channel strip, right? If I had any plugins and things on there and I wanted just a dry audio file, then I would say bypass effects. So you see in some of the same parameters that we saw in Bounce in Place, correct? I'm going to turn my normalization off, and I'm going to go ahead and add the resulting files back to the project browser too. That allowed me to get them back into the project quickly. And then I'm going to say save. Oops, I messed up. The reason I messed up is because I had my cycle on, so it didn't bounce the entire thing. Let me do that one more time. I'm going to get rid of this folder just to be clear. All right, let's do that again. Command E. I'm going to the desktop. Command D. On the desktop, I'm going to create a new folder called UB Stems. I'm going to say create. And I'm going to go here and say 1 per channel strip. Yes, yes, off. Save. And now you see it go all the way across the project. Now, when you export files that way, you'll notice that it continued past this and it goes all the way to the end of your project. In Logic, you have a project end. I mentioned this in the first week. By default, the project goes to 129 bars. So these audio stems are going to start at bar 1, which there's no actual drums happening there, but that's fine. I will have a region that starts at bar 1, and it will actually go for 129 bars. I could have created a cycle that made it go exactly to this location, but it's fine. Your stems, when you pull them into the project, the whole purpose of creating stems is you just pull them into any DAW, line them up at bar 1, and they will be in sync with your project, and that's what we're going to have here. So I'm going to go to my file browser. Shortcut to your file browser is the letter F. And over here on the side of the screen, you get your file browser. Now, I told it to bring those files back into my file browser or my project browser, but I bounced them twice. So I'm going to go a different way about this because I don't want to get you confused about what I'm bringing in. I'm going to go to all files in my file browser, and I'm going to go to my desktop by clicking this little house in the middle here and going to desktop. And so on my desktop, I've got a folder called UB Stems. I can just drag this entire folder into my project. Oops. And let's see if I can get it down to bar 1. That's it at bar 1. And once I do that and drop it, I'll get this dialog that comes up and say, hey, what do you want to do with the files inside this folder? And it notices that there are multiple files in the folder. I'm going to say create new tracks instead of use existing and say, okay. All right. And just like that, I've got my individual drum parts in my project. So let me mute these and let you, oops, that's solo. Mute that and solo these drum parts so you can hear them. Again, really loud. Sorry about that. Let me turn these down. Everything just goes to unity when you bring it in like that. So there are all my drum parts right in my project ready to go. Right? On separate channels. And that's what I wanted there. Now I did something interesting down here at the end. Let me see what's happening down here. Oh, it treated this last region as its own thing, and it just bounced it out stereo here. I don't know why I did that. Okay, we'll just get rid of that. And I'm going to leave it like this.